The sun of Violia cast long, shimmering beams across the crystalline forests, painting everything in hues of violet and silver. Lyra walked among the towering crystal spires, her small frame moving carefully over the jagged terrain. Her skin, pale and smooth, caught the light in uneven flickers, a trait that marked her as different in her world. Violia was a society that celebrated perfection, symmetry, and uniformity. Those who deviated from the ideal were shunned, often forced into exile or worse. Lyra's flickering bioluminescence made her an outcast from the moment she opened her eyes. Even among her own family, she felt the weight of unspoken disappointment. Her parents' gazes, once warm, had grown cool and distant, filled with the subtle rejection of a society they themselves could not fully resist. Her siblings avoided her, mimicking the judgments of their peers. Lyra had learned long ago that no apology or attempt to conform could change the way Violians saw her. The world she was born into had no place for someone like her. Yet, despite the constant loneliness, Lyra had found a certain peace among the forests. The crystalline trees hummed with their own vibrations, and the reflective surfaces created a kaleidoscope of lights that mirrored her own uneven glow. Here, she could move without judgment. She practiced her telepathy in secret, sending ripples of thought to the distant treetops and learning to control the subtle energies that flowed through her body. She dreamed that one day someone might see beyond her outward differences, someone who could recognize the value hidden beneath the flickering light. Her solitude was interrupted one morning by a sound unlike any she had heard in the forest. It was low and mechanical, a harsh vibration that didn't belong to the natural symphony of Violia. Curious, she crept toward the source, her bioluminescence dimming to avoid detection. The sound grew louder as she approached a clearing, and there she saw it, a human starship, small and sleek, partially embedded in the crystal soil. Smoke curled from its damaged engine and sparks shot into the violet sky. A human moved near the ship, his movements precise but careful. He was tall, with dark hair and bright, observant eyes that seemed to take in everything around him. Lyra froze. Humans were considered dangerous, unpredictable, even primitive by Violian standards. But as she watched him, she noticed something unusual. He did not react with fear or aggression at the alien surroundings. Instead, he worked with steady hands, adjusting panels and muttering softly to himself. There was no malice, no arrogance, only focus and determination. Something stirred within Lyra, a mixture of curiosity and caution. She had been taught that humans were outsiders, threats to the harmony of Violia. But this human Aaron seemed different. He carried himself with a confidence that did not rely on judgment or force. Lyra felt a pull she could not explain, a quiet hope that perhaps not all beings would reject her. Despite her instincts to flee, she moved closer, careful to remain unseen. She observed as Aaron wrestled with a stubborn panel, his hands working deftly despite the unfamiliar machinery. His eyes flicked to the sky occasionally, scanning for signs of danger, yet he remained calm, unfazed by the alien environment. Lyra felt a strange admiration for him. His focus, his patience, and the way he seemed to adapt to the unknown stirred something deep inside her. A sudden snap of a crystal branch beneath her foot betrayed her presence. Aaron looked up immediately, his eyes locking onto hers. Lyra froze, expecting the worst, anger, fear, perhaps even an attack. Instead, he smiled, a small, reassuring gesture. He raised a hand, not in threat, but in greeting. "Hello," he said, his voice carrying easily through the forest. "I don't mean to startle you. Are you okay?" Yet there was something in his tone that seemed genuine, something that made her want to step forward. Slowly she did, her movements cautious but deliberate. Aaron's eyes widened slightly as he noticed the flickering pattern of her bioluminescence. "You're unique," he said softly, with neither judgment nor ridicule. Lyra flinched at the word. Unique in Violia often meant flawed, condemned, shunned, but Aaron's expression was different. There was no disdain, only curiosity and acceptance. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. She stepped closer, and Aaron extended a hand in friendship. "I could use some help," he said. "This ship is more complicated than I expected." But as they worked side by side, a rhythm developed. Lyra's bioluminescence flickered in sync with her concentration, and Aaron adapted, guiding her with gentle encouragement rather than command. Hours passed unnoticed as they repaired a crucial part of the engine. They exchanged few words, but each was filled with meaning. Lyra began to realize that she was not just assisting him, she was part of something larger, something collaborative and real. She had never experienced this before. Violia had taught her isolation and rejection, but here, in the presence of this human, she discovered connection. The forest around them grew darker as the twin suns of Violia dipped below the horizon. Shadows stretched across the crystal spires, and the first stars appeared in the violet sky. Aaron paused, wiping a smear of soot from his cheek, and looked at Lyra. "You have a gift," he said, eyes steady on hers. "You're clever, resourceful, you're capable of more than you know." No one had ever seen her abilities as strengths. Her heart raced, a mix of fear and exhilaration. Could it be possible that she belonged somewhere beyond the judgmental gaze of Violia? Their moment of quiet reflection was interrupted by a distant hum, a mechanical sound that sent a chill down Lyra's spine. She recognized it immediately, Violian patrol drones scanning the forest for anomalies. Their sensors were precise and unforgiving. If they found her here helping a human, there would be consequences beyond imagination. Aaron noticed her tension. "We should move," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "I don't know what they're capable of, but I know we need to get out of here before they see us." She led the way through the crystalline trees, using the shadows to mask their movement. As they moved, Lyra discovered the first real test of her abilities. The drone's sensors were advanced, able to detect even minor fluctuations in energy. Lyra concentrated, modulating her bioluminescence to create a pattern that mimicked the forest's natural rhythms. The drones passed overhead, scanning, and then moved on, unaware of the two figures slipping silently beneath their gaze. Aaron glanced at her, eyes wide with astonishment. "That was incredible," he whispered. "I didn't think anyone could do that." "If they see us," her voice trailed off, but the meaning was clear. Discovery meant punishment, perhaps death. They continued through the forest until they reached a hidden glade where the crystals formed natural shelters. Here, they paused to rest. Lyra observed Aaron as he worked on a minor repair, his hands deftly adjusting components with skill she could not have imagined. She felt a strange sense of admiration, not just for his abilities, but for the way he treated her as an equal. "I've never met anyone like you," he said finally, looking at her with a seriousness that made her pulse quicken. "Back home, people judge based on appearance or status. Here, you're just you, and that's enough." She had spent her entire life hearing the opposite, and yet somehow she believed him. For the first time, she allowed herself a glimmer of hope that perhaps there was a place where she could belong, where her differences were not a curse but a gift. The night deepened, and the stars of Violia shimmered above. Lyra sat beside Aaron, listening to the hum of the forest and the faint mechanical whir of the damaged ship. She thought of her family, of the world she had left behind, and of the life she might find beyond it. Fear still lingered, a shadow at the edges of her thoughts. But for the first time, it was accompanied by something new, possibility. As she drifted into a light sleep, Lyra's bioluminescence flickered softly, casting gentle patterns across the crystalline walls of the glade. She dreamed not of rejection, but of acceptance. She dreamed of a world where she could be seen for who she truly was, and not for the flaws that Violia demanded she hide. The first rays of the twin suns touched the forest, and Lyra awoke with a sense of determination. Today, she would help Aaron finish repairing the ship. Today, she would step into a new chapter of her life, one where she might finally discover the meaning of belonging. And somewhere deep in the forest, the patrol drones began their morning sweep, unaware that the one they sought had found something far more powerful than fear: hope. The hum of the repaired engine vibrated through the human ship as Aaron finished the final adjustments. Lyra watched, her heart beating fast with a mixture of excitement and fear. The forest behind them was no longer safe. The patrol drones of Violia had surely discovered her absence, and their relentless pursuit was inevitable. She had spent her life hiding, but now the world she had always known threatened her survival. Aaron glanced at her with a calm but serious expression. "The ship should be ready for takeoff," he said. "We don't have much time. They'll be searching for you, and if they catch us here, it won't end well." Aaron guided her inside the ship. The interior was small but functional, filled with panels, blinking lights, and unfamiliar instruments. Lyra moved cautiously, touching surfaces with awe. She had never seen technology like this, nor had she imagined working alongside a human to navigate it. The hum of the engines seemed to echo the rhythm of her own heartbeat. "Hold on tight," Aaron instructed, strapping himself into the pilot's seat. Lyra followed, securing herself as best as she could. Her bioluminescence flickered nervously, illuminating the cramped space with uneven pulses of light. She felt exposed, yet somehow safe, as if the human presence beside her was a shield against the world that had always rejected her. The ship lifted off the crystalline forest floor, gliding past the towering spires that had been her prison. Lyra pressed her hands against the viewport, watching the forest shrink below her. The world she had known all her life seemed impossibly distant, a memory of isolation and judgment. And yet, with Aaron at her side, she felt a strange sense of hope that she had never experienced before. As they ascended into the thin atmosphere, alarms suddenly blared from the ship's console. Lyra's eyes widened. "What is it?" she asked, fear tightening her voice. Aaron's fingers flew across the controls. "Drones, they've detected our liftoff. They're trying to intercept us." She had always relied on stealth to avoid detection, but now she was in an open vessel with nothing to hide behind. Panic threatened to rise, but she forced herself to focus. Her abilities, once considered flaws, were now her greatest assets. "I can help," she said, her voice steady despite the tension. Aaron looked at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "Do it," he said immediately. "Anything that can give us an advantage." Aaron adjusted their course, weaving the ship through the dense energy fields of the atmosphere. Together, they managed to evade the initial wave of pursuit. Breathing heavily, Lyra exhaled. "That worked," she said, her eyes bright with adrenaline. Aaron smiled, impressed. "You're incredible." "I've never seen anything like that." She had no way to know if she could truly survive beyond the borders of her world. The stars stretched endlessly before them as the human ship exited Virelia's atmosphere. Lyra pressed her forehead to the viewport, marveling at the vast expanse. She had always dreamed of exploring beyond her home, but the reality was overwhelming. The universe was immense, and she felt both small and powerful at the same time. Aaron spoke quietly, breaking the silence. "I've traveled a lot, Lyra, but I've never met anyone like you. You're not just capable, you're extraordinary. You see the world differently, and that's a strength, not a weakness." She had spent her entire life being told she was flawed, and now this human, stranger and friend was affirming her worth. She wanted to believe him, and in that belief she felt a spark of courage she had never known. Days passed as they navigated through space, each moment filled with learning and discovery. Lyra became increasingly adept at operating the ship's systems, surprising even Aaron with her quick adaptability. She learned to calculate courses, manage energy flow, and anticipate potential threats. With each task, her confidence grew, and she realized that her differences, once a source of shame, were giving her an edge in ways she had never imagined. During moments of quiet, Aaron shared stories of humanity, their struggles, achievements, and the ways they valued diversity and resilience. Lyra listened with fascination. Humans, he explained, thrived on ingenuity and empathy, often turning apparent weaknesses into strengths. Lyra marveled at the idea that a society could celebrate individuality rather than condemn it. It was a concept that seemed impossible on Virelia, yet here it was, real and tangible. One evening, while the ship drifted through a nebula of shifting colors, Aaron turned to her. "You don't have to hide anymore, Lyra. You belong with us if you choose to. I see you. I know what you can do, and it matters." She had never been seen like this, not truly, not completely. The weight of years spent in isolation and rejection seemed to lift, replaced by a sense of belonging she had never dared to imagine. She nodded, her bioluminescence flickering gently in response to her emotions, but their peace was short-lived. Sensors on the ship detected a new presence, an advanced Virelian warship, far larger and more formidable than the drones they had previously evaded. Lyra's pulse quickened. The warship was closing in, and its intentions were clear: capture or eliminate the rogue. Aaron's voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. "We have to move fast." "This won't be easy." Aaron adjusted their course, weaving the ship through the colorful currents of the nebula. The chase was intense. The Virelian warship fired pulses of energy, narrowly missing the human ship as it dodged and maneuvered. Lyra's abilities became crucial, creating illusions and false signals that kept the enemy guessing. Aaron marveled at her skill, realizing that her imperfections were their greatest advantage. Hours passed, each moment a test of endurance and ingenuity. Lyra's mind was sharp, her focus unyielding. She discovered new ways to manipulate her bioluminescence, using it to jam communications, redirect energy flows, and create distractions. The human ship responded flawlessly, Aaron's hands moving with precision and confidence. Together, they formed a partnership that was greater than the sum of its parts. Finally, as the warship pursued them into a dense field of asteroids, Lyra devised a daring plan. She would lead the warship into the thickest part of the field, where its size and sensors would be a disadvantage. Aaron hesitated for a moment, recognizing the danger, but he trusted her judgment. "You can do this," he said firmly. "I believe in you." When they entered the asteroid field, the massive vessel struggled to navigate, colliding with rocks and losing speed. Aaron and Lyra moved past unscathed, their combined efforts ensuring their escape. Breathing heavily, Lyra allowed herself a moment of relief. She had faced the most formidable forces of her world and survived not by hiding, but by embracing who she truly was. Aaron smiled at her, admiration shining in his eyes. "You did it," he said. "You saved us both." She had found someone who believed in her, and in that belief she had discovered her own strength. As they drifted through the colorful nebula, Lyra realized that belonging was not about conforming to the expectations of others. It was about connection, courage, and being seen for who she truly was. She looked at Aaron, feeling a bond that transcended species and worlds. For the first time in her life, she was not alone. And somewhere in the distance, the Violian warship struggled to regain its course, unable to anticipate the ingenuity and resilience of a human and the alien who had been shunned by her world, but who had now found her place among the stars. The human ship glided through the asteroid field. The stars stretched across the vast darkness like scattered diamonds. Lyra's bioluminescence flickered nervously as she adjusted the ship's sensors. Even after their escape from Violia's warship, she knew their journey was far from over. The universe was vast and dangerous, and their pursuers were relentless. Yet, for the first time, she felt a quiet confidence. She had survived her world's rejection and the deadly chase. Now she had a choice to define her own path. Aaron glanced at her, his hands steady on the controls. "We've bought ourselves some time," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "But the warship won't give up easily. They're advanced, and they know our ship is vulnerable. We need a plan, something clever, something unexpected." Every flicker, every pulse, every irregular pattern could confuse sensors, manipulate energy, and create opportunities where none existed. "What if we lead them somewhere they can't maneuver?" Lyra suggested, her voice gaining strength. "Somewhere chaotic, where their size and rigidity are disadvantages." "I trust you to guide us. I know you can do it." The nebula's unpredictable currents would challenge the warship's advanced systems, giving them a chance to turn the tide. As they entered the nebula, Lyra's hands moved over the ship's interface with precision and confidence. She synchronized her bioluminescence with the ship's sensors, creating a web of signals that misled the enemy. The warship followed, unable to anticipate the clever maneuvers of the human ship and its alien navigator. The chase intensified. Energy pulses streaked past them, narrowly missing the ship as the Violian warship fired relentlessly. Lyra's flickering light created phantom signals, making the enemy miscalculate its course. Aaron followed her lead, weaving the ship through the chaotic currents of the nebula. Together, they became a single force. Human ingenuity and alien uniqueness combined to outmaneuver a superior opponent. Hours passed, each moment testing their focus and resolve. Lyra's mind was sharp, her senses heightened by adrenaline and necessity. She discovered new ways to manipulate her abilities, sending pulses that interfered with energy readings and scrambled communication systems. Aaron executed maneuvers she suggested, trusting her instincts completely. Their partnership was flawless, forged in the crucible of survival. Yet, even as they gained ground, Lyra knew the danger was far from over. The Violian warship was not a simple machine. It was a fortress in space, built to eliminate threats with precision. She had to think beyond evasion. She needed a strategy that would end the pursuit once and for all. Lyra's mind raced, analyzing the nebula's energy patterns and the warship's response to their tactics. She realized that the dense core of the nebula contained fluctuating energy currents strong enough to disrupt the warship's systems, but not the smaller, more agile human ship. It was a perfect trap. "I have an idea," Lyra said, turning to Aaron. "We lure them into the nebula's core. Their size and rigidity will make them vulnerable. If we time it right, we can disable their systems long enough to escape completely." Lyra guided Aaron with precise instructions, each move calculated to exploit the enemy's limitations. Suddenly, the warship fired a massive energy pulse, catching them off guard. The human ship rocked violently, alarms blaring. Lyra steadied herself, her mind working furiously. "Focus! Adjust the energy shields to counter the pulse and use the decoy signals," she shouted. Aaron responded immediately, redirecting power and following her guidance. The shields shimmered under the strain, holding just long enough to absorb the impact. Lyra's decoy signals confused the warship further, making it fire blindly into the nebula. Rocks and energy clouds slammed against the massive vessel, damaging its systems and slowing its pursuit. Breathing heavily, Lyra realized the trap was working. The warship's systems were failing, its size preventing quick adaptation. She directed the human ship toward a narrow passage in the nebula, too tight for the enemy to follow without risking catastrophic damage. The warship hesitated, miscalculating its path, and collided with a dense cluster of energy crystals. Sparks flew, systems overloaded, and the massive ship faltered. Aaron grinned, a mix of relief and admiration in his eyes. "You did it," he said. "We've turned the tables." She had faced her world's rejection, escaped pursuit, and used her differences as a strength. Her imperfections had become their greatest advantage. Even as they navigated away from the disabled warship, Lyra knew their journey was far from over. Space was vast, and dangers were never-ending. But she no longer felt fear in the same way. She had found courage, ingenuity, and connection, gifts that made her stronger than she had ever imagined. Days passed as they traveled through star systems and nebulas, each new discovery teaching Lyra more about the universe and herself. She learned to operate the ship with skill rivaling Aaron's, to anticipate challenges, and to find creative solutions using her unique abilities. She began to see that belonging was not about fitting into someone else's expectations. It was about contributing, connecting, and embracing who she truly was. Aaron shared more stories of humanity along the way, explaining how humans thrived on collaboration, creativity, and resilience. Lyra listened with fascination, absorbing not only the knowledge but the values behind it. Humans had imperfections, yes, but they turned those flaws into strength. They saw value in differences, in quirks, in the unexpected. It was a concept so alien to Violia, yet profoundly freeing. One quiet evening, as the ship drifted past a glowing gas giant, Lyra stood at the viewport, watching the swirling clouds below. She thought of Violia, of the world that had shunned her, that had rejected her very existence. She felt a pang of sadness, but it was tempered by a growing sense of liberation. She no longer needed their approval. She had found her place, not in the expectations of her birth, but in the choices she had made and the connections she had forged. Aaron joined her silently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You've come a long way," he said softly. "You've proven something important, not just to me, but to yourself. You're not what they said you were, you're extraordinary." "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me, for believing I could be more than they said. You always did, you just didn't know it yet." Their journey continued, filled with exploration, learning, and small victories. Lyra's skills grew sharper, her confidence stronger, and her understanding of herself deeper. She learned that being different was not a weakness, but a gift, a source of strength that could overcome even the most formidable challenges. Months later, as they navigated a cluster of uncharted planets, Lyra realized that her life had changed completely. She was no longer the shunned outcast of Violia, hiding in the shadows of the crystal forests. She was a valued member of a crew, respected and admired for her abilities, her ingenuity, and her courage. She had found her place, not in the expectations of her birth, but in the universe she had chosen to explore. As she stood at the viewport, watching a distant star rise over the horizon of a new world, Lyra's bioluminescence pulsed steadily, a reflection of her newfound strength and confidence. She whispered to herself, a quiet affirmation of the journey she had undertaken. "I belong." She had faced rejection, fear, and danger, yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more capable than she had ever imagined. Her journey was far from over, but she no longer feared the unknown. She had found not just survival, but purpose, connection, and acceptance. In that moment, among the stars and the endless possibilities of space, Lyra understood the true meaning of belonging. It was not given by a society that demanded perfection. It was earned through courage, trust, and the willingness to embrace one's unique gifts. She had been shunned by her world, but she had found a place where she truly belonged, a place among friends, allies, and a universe that valued her for who she was. And somewhere far behind them, Violia remained, a world that could not understand the power of individuality, the strength in imperfection, and the courage it took to embrace oneself fully. Lyra had left it behind, but she carried its lessons within her, tempered by the knowledge that belonging was not about conformity, but about being seen, understood, and valued. As the human ship glided onward, Lyra stood tall, her bioluminescence shining brightly. She was no longer just the flickering outcast of Violia. She was Lyra, brave, resourceful, extraordinary. She had survived, thrived, and found a place where she truly belonged. And for the first time in her life, she looked forward to the future not with fear, but with hope, wonder, and the unshakable knowledge that she was never alone. The stars stretched endlessly around them, a canvas for the adventures yet to come. Lyra smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart that no rejection could ever take away. She had found her place among the stars, and she knew without doubt that she belonged.